called State of the Federation. I mentioned a little bit yesterday that the idea behind this is to give the members, ESIP, a peek into what's going on inside the Federation as a whole. This is a lot of activities. If you're involved as a chair or a leader of some group, you'll get to see the breadth of activities. But that's really the idea. And I've got to say, Emily was going to give this presentation, but she's still not feeling well. And so I'm happy to do this presentation for her as sort of my last act of revelry or whatever it's going to be. We'll see. So just to warm you up a little bit, and especially this slide's been shown a couple of times now. It should be shown really at every meeting, just to sort of remind that ESIP not just is you, but you're coming from a really interesting mix of places, government, academia, industry, and so on, education. And the making data matter part of ESIP really is just, it's great to hear people just sort of say it a lot more, that data matters. and so we kicked off this meeting, with Kirsten and Gavin, and the thread that's gone through is the value piece of this. And value, really, of course, like quality, is in the eyes of the beholder. And so it's something that I hope you take away from all the, detailed technical discussions, and sort of thinking about who values and uses your data. And we sort of tend to label them users. It's like a drug reference almost. And maybe that's good, right? If they're addicted to our data and they need us badly, that's good. But just sort of think about that user orientation, that consumer orientation of data products, services, and so on as you go forward. So, a little update on where we are with the members, organizations and members, you as individuals associated, affiliated with organizations, then are able to show up at the meeting. But of course, it's a non-exclusive organization. Anyone can show up and participate in ESIP. They don't have to be a member. As I tell people, the only difference, and it's only two differences. One is that you get a lower registration fee to come to the meeting. And two, you don't have to go to these sometimes boring business meetings and have a voice. And at some point, people realize, actually, this is pretty, good stuff going on. I'd like to really, play a part in sort of moving this organization forward, and I'd like to have a voice in the organizational aspect of ESIP. So we have four types. The type 4s are currently our what we call strategic, but really at the moment they give us money. But you might see that list increase in the sense that we've been thinking that a number of organizations, won't name them, are really providing in-kind support, sponsorship, by funding projects and giving incentives and directions for those projects to come and show up at ESIP regularly, conduct their business at ESIP meetings and in the ESIP community. And so there's sort of an in-kind strategic partnership, sponsorship there that I think we really probably need to start recognizing. Because often, people say, oh, it's, NASA and NOAA's fueling all this, but it's actually, that's only partly true. There's a large number of federal and foundation organizations and commercial organizations that are really strategic partners in ESIP. And then, our sort of core group of people who show up are the type 1, 2s, and 3s, data center researchers and the applications. And just a reminder of the numbers here. The first number is the number of what we consider to be active members, and the second number is the total number of members that exist. So data centers, ooh, way to go guys, keep showing up. 2s and 3s, don't be too alarmed, because these are largely memberships that have been initiated by organizations that have had sponsored research projects that maybe no longer exist. and thus the activity level. And you know, I've said maybe last year that we have a mechanism in place for looking at those memberships that are inactive, and we do have a process in place for determining whether that membership still really is legitimate to be counted on a chart like this. And it has implications for how we conduct our business, because things that require voting, which we did yesterday, through an assembly, has a quorum, and these are the numbers that count in that particular quorum. And you know, we're growing. We admitted 5 new members yesterday, including, you know, AGU and you know, a lab from Wright State University and others, and so things are sort of in nice shape. So we had the business meeting yesterday. I tweeted out the agenda. We've got representatives also from the 3 types, not just on the executive committee, which is the group that sort of does the month-to-month, sometimes week-to-week leadership, sort of volunteer leadership, but there's members on our administrative committees, the finance committee, constitution, bylaws, and partnership, and so go see who stepped up and for those positions, and if it's something you might want to do in the future, and have any questions, you should ask someone from the current leadership or from the ESIP staff. And it really, you know, I keep saying ESIP is you, and you are the leadership, and this sort of election out of the body assembled here is a really important part of ESIP. What we call the collaboration areas for ESIP is stable, and still morphing, because that's how ESIP works. We now have 5 standing committees which are oriented around sort of the science and technical mission, if you like, of ESIP. Right, so stewardship, education, IT, products and services, and just yesterday, semantic web technologies was designated as a committee. And these are sort of the things that ESIP as a whole, the membership as a whole, are really committing to and putting their name behind. And they are, you know, resources really for a lot of the other working activities that go on inside ESIP. We have a small number of administrative committees because it's important to sort of keep the integrity of the organization in place so everyone else can do the stuff they need to do. I won't name them. And then the working groups are the slightly more formal. You know, they're all really great groups, but I want to give just a little call out to Visioneers. Visioneers is sort of a cool name for a group of people who voluntarily come together. And again, thanks to Steve Diggs from UCS and Denise, especially, who've been sort of invigorating that group. But this is an open, all these groups, committees, and so on are really open. Visioneers sort of sets the thinking and the tone and the organization for when we get together. What does it look like? And your input and your ideas are really, really welcome, and especially going forward, because there's a few new opportunities coming up for ESIP that you know, we hope Visioneers will really weigh in on. Continue to be innovative, sit on the edge, understand how the things that we do here relate to other organizations, other meetings, and so on. And then, you know, hopefully many of you have dropped in on cluster activities. We tend not to label them as such on the program, but you know, you can identify. You've heard a lot about drones at this meeting. There's certainly was a focus on disaster lifecycle. We heard a little bit about cloud, and these are you know, much more informal activities that allow topics of interest, especially topics that you care about, to rise up, attract the body of expertise and knowledge and questioning and so on into those groups. And so, you know, web services, as I mentioned the other day, sort of sprung back to life. You know, web services was one of the very early clusters that was formed, and it got to the point where everyone said, well, I think we're done. We've either solved it or everyone stopped listening, but it's back again. And if you're sort of curious why that might be, talk to Soren Scott and others and find out what that's about. So ESIP's the community, and without sort of going into or repeating some remarks I made yesterday at the assembly, the terminology that we use is ESIP, the Earth Science Information Partners, is a federation of members. That's all of you. That's the community. It's the volunteer piece of this. And backing that is the Foundation for Earth Science. It's the financial and legal entity. Erin is the executive director. We've got Annie Burgess, Rebecca Fowler, Anne and Danny Keys as the, quote, staff. I'm going to have to find a different word for that because staff doesn't quite cut it for me. That's what really makes everything work. That's on a day-to-day basis where there's an infrastructure and a collaboration environment and just logistical support that can't be done without. So new leadership, and I failed at finding Soren's picture on the web. That's pretty interesting. So quick task, everyone, try and find an image of Soren Scott for me. I couldn't get to the Facebook page. I'm so sure there's one on there. Again, new leadership, Emily, fantastic. You're in good hands. Christine. And some of the nice things is we've got some returning faces. All right, Bill and Ken, especially Danny Kincaid stepping up from the Type 1 representative into one of the administrative committees, is that right? Partnership, right. And Soren for products and services, and then Justin, Luann, and Ethan showing back up, and our type representatives, Bob, Sky, and Ted. And this forms, quote, the leadership. Here's the staff, friendly, smiling faces. They are really all smiling, which I think is good, and they smile throughout the whole meeting, right? They will smile even more after we're finished today. And they were smiling quite a lot last night at the dinner that we had. This slide could be about 50 slides long about the things that ESIP actually does. But we tend to pull out a few that have maybe been prominent in the last year. And I left in the word best practices. Some of you heard me rail a little bit about the word best. But in a sense, I left it in because I do think ESIP has that quality of really articulating the best. And there's not many other data-related organizations that are able to claim that. And the practice part of it is because, we all consider ESIP to be a community really of practitioners that are also, have an academic leaning and maybe some policy, but it's getting the stuff done that is what ESIP is really all about. The test bed, Christine, Ken Kaiser before her, through the Products and Services Committee, has really sort of invigorated the getting things done part. So if you haven't heard about the test bed, track down Christine or the incoming Products and Services Chair, Soren, to find out what that's about. Whether you all know it or not, your professional, career is being developed while you're here, so without your permission, maybe. And so the reason this is mentioned is think about those people in your organization or maybe your collaborators who might actually benefit from coming to ESIP and sort of drawing on the body of knowledge and sort of advancing what they do on a daily basis. Outreach, meaning, we have impact in a number of areas beyond this organization as a whole. It's in the private sector, it's in the government sector, it's internationally, and so on. Goes without saying, I think everyone I've talked to today or yesterday or the day before says, it's the networking, it's the connections, it's all those things that make ESIP valuable. The fact that we're getting a consistent and growing participation in the summer and winter meetings in light of, as we all know, a large number of meetings and commitments and things like that, again, value, what I hear is you're getting a lot of value about coming here. And then because, for a variety of different reasons, you said you weren't going to have any slides. That's all right. Sprinkling the dust, the magic dust, into parts of the community, really through a community collaborative process. Sprinkling some money into to do things, to get past certain pain points, to do things that you can't do by yourself, is something that ESIP has been able to do. We're not a granting organization. We're not, don't rely on us for your sustained funding. But if you can come together as a group, as a community, there's a lot of opportunities there. All right, so now I'm going to just run through some highlights. These slides will be reloaded up onto the ESIP Commons under the session of this name, so you can get these. The executive committee, we often tend to sort of not say too much about what happens in the volunteer leadership. But we've been working on financial relationships with between the foundation and federation, just to make sure everything is stable. And one thing that we've really gone back to is construct a budget, not just for budgetary purposes, but to sort of look at how the inflow of money, both from our sponsors and from what revenue gets generated at the meetings, and how it flows back directly into strategic parts of community activities. Test bed, for example, student fellows. And there's a set of these things, and this is all open for you to see and comment on and so on. And I think this is a really important part, to sort of really see how investments, not just your time, but financial investments, get funneled back into the activities. Semantic Web Technologies Student Fellow Program, is just fantastic. If you haven't met the Student Fellows, please, try to, because they really are a great part of what we do. I've been keen on, in terms of connecting the actual membership. Our type representatives are those at the moment 3 individuals who really represent their members on the leadership side, and then going forward, I think we might see some more of a role. And the previous list of those activities we're doing, the collaboration, to get them all sort of really coming together and supporting each other. The strategic plan for the next 5-6 years was approved. Shout out to Emily Law as outgoing vice president for leading this activity, and the executive summary and the roadmap was approved yesterday. And it's a document, and if you like, a strategy that's going to sort of continuously evolve as the activities of ESIP go on. And one thing about this plan, which is very, very nice, is that it connects the high-level strategic goals right down to the groups, the actual activities that are going on. And so there's an opportunity in there for the groups to really see how they're contributing to the greater good. Why are these goals important? That's why our sponsors give us money, all right? That's why people look at the organization, and Sky, I think it was, pulled stuff out of that strategic plan, and the goals and the words in there are very strong and very ambitious. And that came from you. And so, aspire to those goals. Think about the work that's maybe not being done to meet some of those goals, so that we can really push that forward. There's, a lot of things that have gone on. A lot of this goes on in the week to week, the month to month between these meetings. The test bed itself, if you haven't taken a look at the sort of the evolution and the invigoration that's in there, it's really worth taking a look at. the Data Stewardship Committee that Justin Goldstein is heading up, has just got a ridiculously impressive set of things that they've done this year, including getting published material out into the literature that is being cited and and quoted and so on, that really recognizes the contributions that the people in this committee have made, but it also enhances the reputation of ESIP. In particular, the role that the Stewardship Committee played in the Group on Earth observations, updates of their data sharing principles and their data management principles it's phenomenal, right? It really is. The disaster life cycle, Emily and others have put together this common, collaborative common operating picture for disaster life cycle. Erin and I went to Washington. We had some really fun visits. We sat in the office of the administrator of NOAA, with the chief scientist, the CIO, and the administrator science advisor. And, you could sort of see that NOAA, in particular, at the very highest levels of NOAA, really do understand and appreciate what ESIP as a community is doing, and looking at opportunities for more things that they can do with us. Things outside of sciences, the NIH community, the big data to knowledge community, are just enamored with all of you. I had the privilege of going and talking to them, and they're going, okay, we've been trying to do this for 15 years and we haven't made any progress like you've made every year, year to year. So it's another nice thing. Code of conduct, if you haven't seen that, go to the wiki and see what that means is, you're ESIP, and ESIP has a reputation, it has a brand, and there's a code of conduct that you should be aware of when you're sort of using the word ESIP and representing yourself as part of that. And now I'm going to just go through some highlights. Education Committee, Luann has really fired things up again. Teacher workshops, just a really rich set of activities that are going on in education. And she's over here. You can talk to her and find out how to get involved. One theme that came out of this meeting early on, starting with Gavin, is stories and science communication. And don't think that science communication is only about climate or those things. Science is what you are all doing. You're doing science, and communicating that to whomever is really an important thing. And inspiring, that generation of kids who maybe think that what we, that all they have in front of them is video games. But there's more to it than that. Stewardship Committee, you'd just be completely depressed by seeing how active they are. Geodata management, the maturity matrix, data management training, influencing the American Meteorological Society, stepping in amongst EarthCube, and being involved with the dynamic data citation, which is heavily connected with the Research Data Alliance. We'll hear about in a minute. Yeah, so, they published a lot. If you haven't seen these papers, go look them up. There's some really good stuff there. Agriculture and climate. This is from the summer meeting at Asilomar. You see the image there of Bill Ting. Also, tremendous activity and impact in agriculture and climate. Finance Committee. Really was because we do have resources. Really, the Finance Committee has really been looking at streamlining and simplifying the way in which the formal groups and the less formal groups, what we call special projects, get budget allocations and get things done and demonstrate progress. So thanks to Bill Ting, who's going to continue that. I am not responsible for this, Denise. and somehow I completely didn't see that picture. So quick story here. So I live in Troy, New York, and Uncle Sam Wilson, is from Troy, New York, and there's a big statue of Uncle Sam. So everywhere we go around the world and we see the Uncle Sam picture, I sort of chuckle, and that's like, he's from Troy. So Denise, you want to come and live in Troy? You want to get out of Bama, do you? Yes, she does. So on the leadership chart that I showed there, I sort of deliberately left the WHOIS nominations open because it's an ad hoc activity right now. But again, call out to Denise, and she was recognized with the President's Award for the work that's done. And it's really about, letting the people who are in the community really step up and play a leadership role and be recognized through the awards. So think about the awards, we got to embarrass Ruth a little bit with the Martha Maiden Award. This is for recognition of contributions. There's a ton of you here that are, that are eligible for that and should be recognized. Products and services I've already said a little bit about. Test beds, one of the really terrific and impactful activities that Annie Burgess with Christine has conducted is the activity for the NASA Advanced Information Systems Technology projects, the TRL evaluations. If you haven't heard the talk by Annie, you should track her down. I think it's a really good example of how ESIP as a neutral convener to, help understand where technology is going and what the reality is, and give, this collaborative, friendly environment in which people on projects can find out, how they're going before they sort of throw things out into the real world, as well as Funding Friday. Great success again last summer, and I'm sure it will be again. The type 1s, the data centers, just a few highlights. The R2R program is now pushing out a lot of digital object identifiers. The Data Conservancy folks are also pushing out more tools in their area, and our good friends at Woods Hole have sort of been, permeating a lot of these committees and contributing to the maturity matrix and such. NOAA's collaborating with NASA. Isn't that cool? I mean, we sort of always knew that was possible, and I'm slightly tongue-in-cheek here, but ESIP as the neutral convener, the feds can come here and do things and collaborate and draw on community resources in a way in which it's a little bit harder to do in their sort of more formal space. Things like information quality, drawing on, NOAA's long experience, planetary data system. NASA still is seeking input for where the PDS is going to be going, and then members of the DACs showing up in a number of these application areas. Type 2s, these are the research folks, the land cover folks. My guys, I just can't keep them under control. They're sort of, they would all come to ESIP if I had enough money for them all to come to ESIP. The group down in Huntsville, the ITSC, Sarah, Helen, Ken, and company are also, you'll see them in sort of all these activities. And our friends and colleagues from the surveys, especially Arizona, Steve Richard, Lee Allison, and so on, are also making great contributions. The connections at large, I won't really spend too much time on because you'll hear a little bit about that from members in the community. Largely collaboration at the agency level, at the upper levels of the presidential administration, the Office of the White House. For those of you who are at the summer meeting, the community resilience, you as a community being resilient to a variety of things, had a really strong resonance inside in the agencies in Washington. The NSF Council on Data Facilities is co-locates with this meeting, and so the connection there with the Type 1 members is really quite strong. And Mark will talk in a little bit about the Research Data Alliance. So we're going back to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill for the summer meeting, the Friday Center, another good collaborative environment. Bring your deodorant and stuff like that. It's going to be a little bit sweaty. But you know, summer meeting is our technical meeting. So this slide is just a reminder that there are many resources that are available to you. The web pages, the wiki, the ESIP Commons, you know, the Facebook experience, and so on, where you can sort of see what the community is doing and what we look like, and so on. So take advantage of that. I think there's a T-shirt that still is going around that says "Get ESIP'd." I still am not quite sure what that means, but some of you sat at tables yesterday at lunch to sort of think about the fun aspect, and I'm one challenge to those people is I need if fun was an acronym, what would it stand for? Because we all know what FINE stands for, right? Frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So we need something for fun. So there you go. That's a challenge to you all. And you're all doing this. This is as much a sort of a pitch to the people who are relatively new, but it's a good reminder for those who've still been around for a while. So I want to stop there. Any quick questions for me? All right, good. Again, feedback on whether, you know, a State of the Federation, a view into what's going on is useful, please let us know. Now, what we do is I'm going to successively hand it over to our colleagues in the community. And some of them have slides, some of them don't. And I'm going to ask Dave Meyer to come up for NASA, and then we've got Jeff, and then we've got Mark, and then we've got George, and then we've got April, and then we've got Wade. And we couldn't keep them away, could we? We'll slide. Is it going to be Sky? Oh, okay. Come on up.
So I'm assuming I'm in here somewhere. And of course, I leave my glasses back there. So,
Hang on.
Do you need readers?
yeah, once I get it big, I'm okay. So, hey.
I'm going to try to not fall off the stage.
Oh, yeah, be careful. Okay, so good morning. You know, as I guess many of you know me as, you know, the Type 1 representative from the Land Processes Act, you know, working with the U.S. Geological Survey. I've only recently come to NASA, so given the fact that I'm just now figuring out where the restrooms are on my floor at NASA headquarters, it only stands to reason that I'd be up here talking here on behalf of that organization. Okay, so, so anyhow, obviously I'm here with Kevin Murphy. Kevin couldn't be here today because he has a 2-hour one-way commute, and I guess he's not big on coming to the west side of town here very often. Real quick, I'm just going to talk about just, you know, budget issues. You know, everybody is interested in those. You know, as probably most of you know, NASA did okay, you know, in this last budget round. You know, overall, you know, the agency got a good bump. You know, Science Mission Directorate got itself a good bump. You know, the bulk of the NASA money did go towards things like, you know, the space station resupply activities, commercial space flight, the heavy launch vehicles, and planetary sciences. But sciences in general did pretty well, okay? And Earth science did get a modest bump. It was somewhat less than, you know, the president requested, but still an increase. And, you know, and Earth science is seeing probably one of the largest budgets it's seen in several years. Much of that is targeted towards the missions I know you guys care about. Landsat 9 is on the mix. You know, they're now talking about, you know, a December 31st, you know, 1 second before midnight, 2020 launch, okay, something along those lines. And then PACE on the International Space Station. So I've just put this up here just because I think someone always shows this plot somewhere. You know, all the missions that are up there are in various stages of formulation, you know, some extended, some not. So this is just for your record. I'm not going to talk about it in any detail. I will pull up this one, which is talking about some of the newer missions. And once again, I won't go through all of these, okay? But you do see that, Landsat 9 is up there. There are a number of instruments slated for the space station. I'll just talk about that in just a second. That's kind of a new gig. And then some pretty substantial missions coming up, like the NISAR and the SWAT missions. NISAR, for those of you who've been following it, is a S-band and L-band SAR mission. It's sort of born from the ashes of the Destiny mission that was set up a while back. Clario is a mission I'm not that familiar with, other than to know that it's sort of a massive transfer radiometer for many other missions that will help with calibration of them. ISAT's coming up. Cygnus on the lower right-hand corner, sort of interesting. It's one of the Earth Ventures activities out of the University of Michigan, my alma mater, so I have to mention it, whereby they're actually looking at reflected GPS signals, to infer information about, atmospheric soil moisture. I guess I'm a land person. Atmospheric moisture. So, atmospheric soil moisture. I guess that could come to pass under the right circumstances. All right. So this is something that's a little bit new. The space station's been up there for a while. It's been doing a variety of very useful and interesting activities. People doing Earth observations have avoided it for a long time because it's a messy environment, and there's all kinds of stuff floating around here that's going to mess up my optics. But then they started taking another look at the ISS and realized there's some really good things you can do there. Two instruments I'm going to call immediate attention to. Once again, my earth science, all right, land science background, are the JEDI, and I don't recall what these acronyms all stand for. It's a LiDAR system. Ralph Dubai at Maryland is the PI on it, and for vegetation mapping predominantly. And then there's the EcoStress, which is Simon Hook's mission out of JPL, using thermal infrared emissions to essentially look at plant canopies or plant respiration, evapotranspiration type issues. That's kind of interesting because it took advantage of the sort of the non-sun synchronous orbital characteristics, the ISS to actually do sort of an infill, of the diurnal cycle of plant respiration and things like that. So that's sort of interesting. So anyhow, we're going to be seeing more and more of these type activities. The Airborne Science Program is growing quite a bit. This is just a quick, cartoon showing all the places that NASA resources have been deployed for a variety of, land, ocean, cryospheric, atmospheric observations. You can see the whole, suite of platforms in the lower right-hand corner there. And then, of course, once we get these data, we turn them into products, distribute them, and this is just showing you how the growth of the NASA EOSDIS archive has grown over the years, so clearly quite large. So this last slide I want to put up here just to kind of leave you with a little bit. Kevin put this together and to just show how with some of these new missions coming on, particularly the SWATs and the NISARs, we think we have a big archive right now. We talk about big data, 12 petabytes is pretty big. I guess it's small compared to eBay's storage and the Amazon Web Services, which is like 10 times that. But you can see that, as these new missions come online and as old missions don't go away, which is kind of a big deal in itself, we're anticipating a pretty big growth, and so we're trying to formulate ways of dealing with this, in a manageable and cost-effective way. And this is one area where we're relying on this group right here to help us sort of, understand new technologies that are coming along, understand how people will be using these data, in these large volumes. And so, yes, this is one area where ESIP is going to play a very important role for how NASA moves forward with this. Just real quickly, I want to mention a couple of things. Peter talked about the climate resilience activity this last summer. We'd like to be continuing that. We've been talking with Aaron about, looking for ways of using ESIP not only to talk about the technologies, but doing more engagements of these consumer communities, and focus very much, from much of the climate data initiatives and then the CRT activities led by NOAA, how people are actually making use of these data. So this is an area that we'd be looking forward to continuing work. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Jeff?
Let me.
That's one. Well, Peter, I wasn't going to do slides, but then I heard the NASA guy had slides. So I thought, well, I got to have slides. But then I saw his slides with satellites and space stations, and now I'm kind of regretting. So anyway, I just have 2 slides other than this one, very brief update. First of all, I think over the last year, we've made really good progress at NOAA on data management activities. Some of the highlights are we've got our NOAA data catalog going. I mean, we had it before, but it's continuing to grow. It's hooked up to data.gov. So now if people register their data at NOAA, it's automatically shown at data.gov. We've hired a contractor, Chris McDermott, to help us make improvements to that catalog. So I think that's a good thing. And we're trying to be very comprehensive as required by the U.S. Open Data Policy. We're continuing to assign DOIs for archival data sets based with the methodology based on the ESIP guidelines for data citation, which were very useful to us. So that's good. I think the EDM, the Data Management Committee policy framework, is in pretty good shape. Maybe there's one more I think we'd like to write, and we're updating one. But these policies are here on data management planning, data access, archiving, data sharing by grantees. That data sharing by grantees is a new thing. It's a revision of an existing one, but it's going to have some new requirements. You'll be seeing that come out early this year. Still trying to figure out, maybe tweaking a little bit what we're suggesting in there, but basically if you're going to get a NOAA grant that produces data, we're going to have to be sure that your data are publicly accessible unless there's, a very valid reason not to make that happen. And also that publications are submitted to the NOAA institutional repository or to some other agency's repository if you're getting multiple sources of funding. But policy framework overall is, I think, going very well. And then, of course, we have the big data project that started this year. I gave a 15-minute update on that yesterday. This is new. It's still R&D. It's not an operational thing necessarily, but I'd really like to see involvement by ESIP in that project. I think the partnership with ESIP continues to be excellent. One thing we did new this year is we co-located our annual NOAA Environmental Data Management Workshop here with ESIP. So we had it Monday, Tuesday in this very facility, and that was great. Everything I've heard from the people who went said they really liked it. And Aaron, thank you very much for your help, and also Annie and Dan on the ESIP side for getting it to happen. That was very, very good. We really appreciate the guidance and the community input on directives and technical approaches. That's very helpful. The ESIP community really understands a lot of what needs to happen, not only at, let's say, the policy level, but really at the how to do work level. And we'd love to see more of that. Like to work more closely in that, as I'll suggest in a second here. We are now in the 3rd year of our 3-year NOAA cooperative agreement. So I probably can't legally solicit any proposal, but I just want to mention that we're in year 3 of a 3-year cooperative agreement. Okay. So future collaboration activities, obviously we got to keep doing the kinds of things we're doing, but new, first of all, it would be great to see ESIP tools used on the NOAA data in the cloud. I think, we've got the type, I can't remember which type it is. It sort of is in the software. Type 3, okay. Type 3 people working on NOAA, on tools to actually use Earth science data. Can any of those run in the cloud? Can you work on the NOAA data? Can you help move forward the cloud approaches? 1 minute, great, no problem. And even further, tools that other people could use would be great, but even your own either use cases or apps or actual value-added products that people are basing on those data, anything in that area would be great. And then another area would be specific feedback on issues you might have ingesting into your tools or into your research NOAA data. That's part of what ESIP was supposed to be, right? Helping bridge the gap between data providers and data users. And we've got a lot of activities, some of which are kind of theoretical, others are more testbed-like. I'd love to see very direct feedback on using NOAA data. And then also, if you have any idea on how we could automatically evaluate the data management maturity of everything listed in our NOAA catalog, that'd be great. I mean, I have some ideas on that, but you may have some tools that would be helpful. So that's the last slide. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Can we get USGS to come up?
Slides. You just have to look at me. All right, good morning. My name is Madison Langseth. I'm with the U.S. Geological Survey. I'm actually quite new to ESIP, quite new to the USGS, and really quite new to Earth science community and the data community at large. So here we go. It's great to be a part of these communities. I'm really enjoying the collaboration that I'm seeing, and really ESIP is an exemplar for agency collaboration and not just in the federal realm, but like also across everything. So I was told that I need to talk about what USGS is doing that would be interesting to ESIP. So I started thinking about the collaborations that we have at USGS and that we're a part of. So we're part of OGC, working with them, Data One. I use so many different things. I can't really talk to those, but the one thing that I can talk to is the USGS Community for Data Integration. So I've had the privilege of facilitating this group for about like 6 months now, and I'm really excited about the work that's happening there. So the purpose of the Community for Data Integration is to really advance the understanding of Earth systems through enhanced use of data and information, and to provide a forum for sharing the work that's happening with data and information. And really the goals for CDI are to have targeted efforts yielding near-term benefits to science, to leverage existing capabilities and existing data, as well as to develop innovative solutions that are really scalable, and work to preserve, to expose, to improve access to data models and other outputs. And so over the last year, there have been some really great projects that the Community for Data Integration has had. We have a group that's working to identify better ways of using controlled vocabularies in USGS information applications, integrating USGS data with EPA data, projects making data more accessible. So we have a project that's working to make unmanned aircraft system data more accessible to the public at large. We have a really cool project applying game mechanics to citizen science research. So through a geocaching of natural features app that people can go out and use, which is pretty exciting. And then we have some folks characterizing earthquake damage by using Twitter. So a lot of really, really cool things happening. And these are all happening through the CDI request for proposal process that happens every year. So we have a kind of a unique funding model for these. So we have PI submit a two-page statement of interest. The community then votes on these statement of interests, which ones are most broadly applicable across the community. And then they move on to a full proposal. And I'm happy to say that the ESIP Data Stewardship Committee actually submitted a statement of interest this year. It was one of the highest ranked and voted on proposals, and now they're moving to the full proposal process. So really excited to see CDI and ESIP doing more together. Hopefully we can we can continue to collaborate and enhance those ties there. One last thing that I want to say, this was a couple months ago, CDI was actually received an award. It was the Excellence in Analytics and Big Data from, let's see if I can get this right, the American Council for Technology and the Industry Advisory Council So they give out yearly awards. Yeah, it's great. Really recognizing government IT programs that are doing groundbreaking work and really collaborative work. So they think that the CDI is great, but just imagine how much more excellent it would be if there was more collaboration. So just keep up the good work with what you're doing here. Let's keep growing all of these collaborations and really making data matter. Thank you.
So Madison has just reminded you need to use the word making data matter in all of your stump speeches from here on out. And Mark has too many slides. I've already told him that. And as you can tell, we got started a little bit late and we want to make sure we get the rest of the community updates. So just bear with us in terms of giving these folks, the time that they deserve to say what's going on.
Thanks, Peter. Oh, that's weird. That's not what the slide looks like on my computer. So I'm going to just give you a real quick summary of the Research Data Alliance. Please talk to me if you want to know more. The Research Data Alliance is a member organization. It has a similar spirit to ESIP, I think, really focused on collaboration, except it's not limited to earth science and it's global. So our vision is very similar to what I think ESIP's trying to accomplish. I'm sure you can relate to that, sharing data to address grand challenges. Our mission, which I think is actually a really nice mission, is to build the social and technical bridges that enable the open sharing of data. It's a very deliberate metaphor, the social and technical bridges, because that's actually how infrastructure works. The final phase of infrastructure is marked by consolidation, by interconnections, interfaces, bridges, gateways, et cetera, relationships. So that's what we focus on. This seems to have resonated with people. We're growing rapidly. We have more than 3,500 members now, individual members, probably about 40, 50 organizational members, primarily in North America and Europe, but we're spreading to the rest of the world. The key thing is that we come together and working in interest groups. Interest groups you might think of sort of similar to ESIP clusters, informal gatherings of people of a common interest working towards solving different problems. Working groups, this is I think where we have a bit of a distinction from ESIP in that working groups only live for 18 months, at the end of which they have developed specific recommendations. And these can be, they're sort of proto-standards, if you will. And they can be either social or technical. They can be a policy, but how is that policy actually put into practice? They can be a technical widget, et cetera. There are a lot of groups. I can't go through all of them by any means. I'm not even going to read through this whole slide. But just, I think that there's good intersections with ESIP in a lot of these areas. So I think collaboration has to occur at a lot of different scales. I use this term glocal, which means playing at the global level and the local level at the same time. It's not just think global, act locally. It's playing in multiple spaces simultaneously. You do that already in ESIP. You do work on problems in your own labs, your own data centers, et cetera. You work on them in collaborative environments in ESIP as appropriate. I would argue that you can think about that in a disciplinary sense too. You work on issues in your discipline, and within ESIP. You also need to do it at a global level. The earth sciences really leads in a lot of areas in data management informatics. But it's been really revealing to me to start working with other communities and see how they're addressing similar problems. And there's things that we can learn from them. Even the humanities is doing some really interesting, incredible stuff. By the same token, the earth sciences is way ahead of other communities in a lot of areas. So I think it would really behoove us to play in certain areas. This stewardship committee has specifically designated liaisons to particular RDA working groups. So for example, Ann Wilson is the designated liaison to some of the persistent identifier groups in RDA. So just to give another example of how this sort of global thing works, there's an agricultural community in RDA that they don't have an ESIP. So they formed an agricultural interest group within RDA. They have actually meetings even outside of RDA where they then make decisions on, okay, do we want to spin up an RDA working group? They did one on wheat interoperability, the semantic approach to wheat interoperability. They're going to do another one on soils. But then they consciously decide, okay, we want to do this in our community. This is an agricultural issue. We want to do this as a working group within RDA. We want to do this let RDA deal with this. Persistent identifiers, we don't need to spin up a persistent identifier group. Let's just make sure that we connect to that. So I thought that was a really nice way of doing that. I think ESIP could take a similar approach. We got a bunch of recommendations. I'm over time. I won't go through them. But just to say that some ESIP members are already adopting some of these recommendations, I encourage you to check them out. The final thing I want to say is that similar to ESIP, again, we have meetings twice a year. Our next meeting will be in Tokyo at the beginning of March. I encourage you to come. RDA plenaries are really the best way to figure out how RDA work. There are a lot of working groups and interest groups, very working level type meetings. Finally, Peter mentioned this yesterday. This will be a big event. I hope it's going to be the biggest data event the world has ever seen. And I encourage ESIP to be thinking about how you might want to get involved. This might be something for the visioneers to grapple with. This is actually a multiple conference. The World Data System and CoData have a biannual conference that they call SciDataCon. It's more of a classic research conference where you present papers and so forth. They have a call for sessions now. So you might want to think about sessions that you might want to contribute to that. So that'll be the first 2 days of the conference. Wednesday will be a joint day, which will be our big day, Global Data Forum. We're looking for ideas on that. We want to engage the private sector. We want to engage the governments. And then the last 2 days, Thursday, Friday, is the RDA plenary. There'll be a lot of side meetings. Anyway, so I'm looking for ideas, looking for partnerships. Talk to me. Thank you.
Next up, we have OGC, George Percival.
This is my slide. And these are my notes. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm from the Open Geospatial Consortium, where I'm on the staff of the OGC. I look forward to a different term, perhaps, but and longtime participant here in the ESIP Federation, previously coming from the NASA community into ESIP. But I think what I want to speak about today is the coordination between ESIP and OGC as a very good example of this alliance relationship. OGC shows up here as a Type 3 organization, and similarly then ESIP shows up as a member within OGC, and we share opportunities in that regard. So let me tell you a little bit about OGC, and then I'll tell you some examples of the coordination that the alliance that we have produced this week. So OGC is a 500 organization consortium. It's split in a couple ways to think about that. One is in terms of types of organizations. So it's 1/3 government agencies, 1/3 research and university organizations, universities and research organizations, and then 1/3 that are commercial companies. So we span all those sectors. Another way to think of those organization memberships of 500 organizations is in terms of geographic distribution. So 1/3 of them are in North America, 1/3 in Europe, and 1/3 in the rest of the world. Our remit, our purpose for being is the sharing of geospatial data, and that's obviously very key to earth science data as you have here, but it is, in our perspective, one of the underlying pieces of information for almost any kind of knowledge that we have. Space and time underlie all that kinds of information. We take that on in that broad breadth statement with all due seriousness. So let me speak then in particular about two examples this week at the ESIP meeting, and actually going back to the NOAA meeting earlier this week was also a very good activity. In particular then around test beds. So we had a session on Wednesday about test beds, and there was 3 different test beds presented, more test beds talked about and the like. The OGC test bed process in particular just concluded test bed 11, which addressed the President's Climate Data Initiative and delivering the easier access to climate data and climate models and the like. And so we presented that as a result of the test bed 11 11 process. We're currently planning testbed 12 to kick off here at the end of February, and 13 is in the planning works. I mentioned both 12 and 13 because we're in discussions now based upon this session this week with Christine and others about what kind of coordination makes sense between the ESIP testbed process and the OGC testbed process. How can we collaboratively improve both of those by coordination? So that was a really good example. I'm really pleased to have participated and look forward to those discussions. The other is a little bit more on a technical framework, coordination and the like, and that has to do with, in particular, model interoperability. I participated in the session Li Ping Dee chaired about model interoperability, model web, and the opportunities there with respect to where we're at now in terms of model interoperability and where we need to go. There's a lot of existing activities. We have in OGC a discrete global grid system spec just announced for public comment. And then we need to move towards also unstructured grids. So some really good discussions this week, even back into the NOAA meeting this week about unstructured grids. So if that's of interest to you, come participate. A lot of those connect into the OGC Earth System Science Domain Working Group, which Jeff DLB and others chair. And that kind of points us back to where do we go forward. This collaboration is about individuals and organizations that participate in multiple activities. So a lot of the members here are members of OGC. A lot of the people that come here will come to the meetings at the end of March, at the beginning of March, excuse me. The testbed 12 kickoff will be March, first few days of March here in DC. And then I welcome you all to the OGC Technical Committee plenary and working group meetings at the World Bank here March 7th through 10th. And hopefully look forward to ESIP items coming up there and that collaboration continuing. So I think the relationship is healthy, and hopefully those examples, good to see old friends, make new friends, and be well.
April?
Two more. So with technical sessions, we'll start a little bit late. Please adjust your duration accordingly.
So I have way too many slides. So think of this as sort of a highlight reel. If you see anything that excites you or appalls you, get in touch and we can talk about it. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I'm April Clyburn Sharon. Sorry? Okay. To do that. How do I do that? There we go. And it's not there. How does that work? Maybe escape. There we go. I'm April Clyburn Sharon from the Center for Open Science. We're a nonprofit technology company out of Virginia. We're working to, oh, that's advancing by itself. Okay. We are working to foster openness, integrity, and reproducibility of scientific research. And we do that by providing open and free services and tools for researchers and for research organizations. And we, because we're so well aligned with what ESIP is trying to do, we're partners of ESIP. So the Center for Open Science is working to align researchers' behavior with scientific values. We're doing this through technology, through training, and through incentives. So I'll start with the technology. The most popular thing, and the thing that some of you I know are familiar with, is the Open Science Framework, which is now being used with ESIP for the test beds, and we're hoping to use for institutional integration as well as for the meetings. So this is a free and open source platform that simplifies collaboration in research. It simplifies the sharing of data, and it is one place where you can have your whole workflow and connect all the tools you're working in one online environment. I'm going to go really quickly through this, but we do online training and webinars. And if you have any questions, we would be happy to do a workshop or a webinar and go into specifics about it. But it's a place where you can store your research materials. We have a place you can manage access and share and control the access to each component of your research. It has automated version control built in. You can get a persistent identifier for each component in your research. You can register your project with the click of a button, and you can share your work really simply. You also have analytics to see the impact of your work beyond just the publication and citations. One of the strengths of the Open Science Framework is that we're integrated with the tools that people are already using, like GitHub, like Dropbox, and we're working to expand those add-ons. And if there's something that you don't see here that you would like to use, we are working with the community to make this useful for you. So come to us with your ideas of what is useful for you. And like I said, we also have integrations of this for meetings and for institutions that we're working with ESIP to make that work for you all. We also do training, which includes statistical and methodological training to promote reproducibility, and training on the Open Science Framework. All of it's free. We can do it either remotely or in person. And finally, we have many incentives, which I won't go into in detail, but if you'd like to come to us and learn what we're doing to try and incentivize openness and transparency in research, we have a pre-registration challenge where you can get money for pre-registering your research. We have badges so you can signal to other people the ways in which you're open. We also have guidelines that you can sign on as an organization or as a journal to show how your policies align with openness and transparency in research. So that is growing every day. We're really excited about it. If you want to learn more about that, come and talk to any of us at the Center for Open Science. We're open to working with you all. So we have these three approaches, and for us, collaboration is how we meet our goals. And so if you do have something that piques your interest or you want to learn more, please get in touch with us. You can see any of the information I talked to here at this website, or you can contact us at, this is contact@cos.io, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks, April. And last but by no means least, come on.
I've decided I don't need the slides.
You're not going to use the slides?
Why not?
We're going to hear from Wade Bishop, who's was one of the Funding Friday awardees, to tell us a little bit about, come on.
Thank you, Yosemite. Yeah, in the interest of time, I realize I don't need slides at all. So thank you very much to the Federation for funding this project. This is a very simple thing. I realize that there's a lot of other users, institutions, and acronyms that make data matter, and a lot of them aren't here. So I had the simple idea of HIP-GEO project, Harvesting Information Partnerships for Geospatial Data Education and Outreach. And what we did with two students was look at potential new type 1 and type 2 partners or members at land-grant institutions, research institutions that have affiliation with land-grant institutions, state associations and agencies, and regional and state divisions of U.S. departments. And we were able to find 1,344 potential other ESIP members that are not currently members that would greatly benefit from the community, and the community would benefit from their input as well. So thanks again for the funding, and hopefully they're able to use that database to help grow the community in new and interesting ways.
1,344, that's quite impressive. We're going to need a bigger room. All right. Thank you for our collaboration colleagues who've come up and sort of told everyone what's going on. Hopefully this has been useful for you to get a broader view, get involved. I'm going to close this State of the Federation. Thank you for bearing with us with the extra time. Obviously, there's a lot going on. So please go now to your technical tracks and enjoy the rest of the meeting, and safe travels home. Thank you.